Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. All right. Welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, I want to especially thank you for giving me your time so early. Something is up with my audio, folks. I don't know. If anything sounds weird, just let me know. I think my little guy got a hold of some of my equipment here and pushed a few buttons. So, at any rate, just let me know if anything weird is going on. Speaking of my little guy, I do want to point out this week and maybe even into next week, we'll see. Maybe a little bit rocky. You probably noticed that there was no show yesterday. That's because my wife was out of town and she was going to fly back in on Sunday night and they canceled her flight. So, therefore, our schedule in the morning yesterday got all topsy turvy because yesterday was also the first day of school for my little man. So we got that taken care of. And unfortunately, the podcast took a hit yesterday, but we're back today and we will continue working out all the kinks and the nuances of our new schedule as he goes to school. So apologies for that, folks. But hey, wouldn't be Liberty Dad if there wasn't some dad stuff, dad related stuff that happens to the show. Anyway, so what do we have going on for today? I want to talk a little bit about the culture war again. You know, I'm not a Republican, I'm a libertarian. However, as I'm observing, I'm starting to see some Republican losses. So I want to show you this video clip here. And this is Valentina Gomez. And this is her. I'm going to show you three clips. And I'm going to just warn you that if you've got your little ones in the car, you're driving them to school and you're listening in, there's a little unsavory language. I apologize. But these are her actual campaign videos that I'm about to show you. And I just want you, we're going to play them and then we're going to talk about how things turned out for her. So here is the first one. Where is there we go. This right. Is there no audio? Of course, there's no audio because that's how things work for me. So give me just a second as I get a hold of the audio. Tisk tisk. All right. Well, this is fun. Can't have a show without audio now, can we? All right, let's try it again. No, nothing. All right. That is so much fun. It's always fun. Let me see what I can do about getting the audio. Let's see here. Apologize, folks, for this. Let's see here. Thought I had it all set up, but I guess not. Let's see. Well, this is absolutely strange. Let me know in the comments if you're hearing it because I am not. It's very, very strange to me. Everything looks like it's going. Let me see if I can't play that second one. Maybe the second one will go. Let's see here. Um, no, no. I don't know what's going on. We've got some issues here, folks. I don't know what to tell you. Let's see here. Well, this will make for a very boring show if I have to read this to you, but I might have to because we have an audio problem here. I don't know what's going on. So, we will give me a second here as I try to reconfigure on the fly and figure out what in the world is going on. But do tell me in the comments if you're not hearing anything. All right. So, what we'll do, we'll just move on. All right, so Valentina Gomez, and what I'll do is I will what I'll do is I'll just kind of read you like rather than play the video, I'll just read you what she said, and we'll go from there. I think that'll probably work, and it'll be well enough. So so let's do this. I know I've got. Let's do it this way. We will do something and I'll deal with the audio that's lacking and maybe some of the other videos. Though that audio will be correct, but we will see. All right. So um, let me see what we got here. Let's go back on this. So I'm watching the video here in design. She says tomorrow. I can't. Let's see here. Can I do that? No. Okay. You know what? That's not going to work either. Well, this is one heck of a show, isn't it? All right. No audio. That's crazy. All right. So Valentina Gomez. So what ended up happening? She was running for office in Missouri and she posted a bunch of videos to Twitter, like left and right. And she was using words like, faggot and gay and all this stuff. And she was jumping on board the social media train of people just saying all kind of unsavory things. And that's what her videos were about. She was like, don't be a faggot. We're gonna win. We're gonna beat you, right? And saying all this stuff, and they were pretty cringe. I didn't really say much at the time because I'm not in Missouri and I'm not a Republican, so kind of didn't really care too much. But I kept an eye out. I watched to see what was going on, and then this happened. So she had their primary, and I definitely can get this up. So here we go. You can see that she came in not second or third or fourth or even fifth, but sixth in her primary. Sixth. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us that wasn't a winning strategy. She got 7.5% of the votes. She got 46,000 votes. And then there's a great big difference between her and the fifth place, who got 70,000 votes. And then it's kind of incrementally goes up 83,000, 86,000. Then you have a nice big jump to number two, 106,000. And then you got a nice little leap there from number two to number one slot, 149,000. She got 7.5% of the vote. She was primaried in Missouri for Secretary of State. And I'm willing to bet it had everything to do with her culture war nonsense. Here's the thing, and I've said this so many times, Republicans, they need to stick to the issues that are their wheelhouse. And that happens to be economic issues. Their wheelhouse is not going on the offense for the culture war. Right now, I want to show you another screenshot here of something. And so this is my friend Carlin, and I know some of you are like not huge fans, and that's fine. You'll get over it. But she says something that I think is very instructive here. So let me put this up on the screen here. So here it is. She points out that she says Trump is not competing against Kamala Harris. He is competing against the entire establishment, the media, and the DNC. They will make Kamala whatever they need her to be to get votes, and they will cheat on top of it. Dismiss this, and you will lose. So, what does this have to do with Valentina? Well, what's going on right now is we're seeing Trump play it. We're seeing Valentina play it. We're seeing other people. A lot of people in the Republican Party are playing this culture war game, and they're going on the offense. Now, in my opinion, what I observe is that the Republican Party does not do very well when they go on the offense. And I'm gonna show you where even Republicans have acknowledged this. Okay. Now, back in a previous episode, you might remember where I was talking about the culture war. And I said, I made 3 points. This was in episode 161, the culture war and libertarians in it. And I said, the best place for libertarians to exist in the culture war, number one, I said, we should absolutely be in the culture war, but it's a matter of how we're in it that matters. So I said, for some items, we simply learn to ignore them. Think about like the Whatever podcast, right? Where they bring all the girls on and they're all wearing skimpy clothes and, the guys asking them crazy questions and stuff. For the most part, you can pretty much ignore stuff like that. Doesn't matter. Let them do their thing. Whatever. Don't need to discuss it. Doesn't have any relevance to politics so much. Like it's not something that needs to be mixed in the area of legislation. So you just ignore it. Then there's a lot that you can discuss. We should have a lot of discussions. The reason I say this is because if you look back, you'll find that liberals, progressives, Democratic Party, all those folks, they have been talking about social issues for decades and decades. And so they're the ones that come out with a lot of the studies. They're the ones that do all this research, and they'll say, hey, a new poll has, said that Americans want gun control. A new poll has said, Americans want trans rights. They'll say these things. Now, the question is whether or not that information is legitimate. And so, in my opinion, Republicans and basically libertarians as well, um, they should be more on the defense. Oh, is that what it said? Well, let's go and look at the data. Let's go and look and see, what does it actually say? Or was your study even a good study? There have been plenty of studies where there have been legislation that's been passed at the federal level on the basis of unverified reporting from individuals on the internet. So what was it? Back in episode, it was like 35 or 36. It was called Bills, Bills, Bills. I did like 3 or 4 bill reviews. In one of those bill reviews was Senate Bill 937, the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. This was back in 2021. And of that bill, when you do the research, they based it on reporting that where basically Asians self-reported and said, hey, I had this experience at Starbucks, at the local Target, or wherever, on the subway. And they reported it. And then this organization collected all these reports and then categorized them, made nice little fancy charts and everything, and said, hey, look, hate crime is exploding. And then they passed legislation on the basis of that. And nobody went out and said two things. They never said, okay, well, did these things really happen? And it's not that I'm doubting that Asian Americans weren't having unpleasant experiences. The question is, was every one of them verified? Do we know? Because we passed legislation on the basis of the collection of these reports and said the collection of these reports tells us about our country. So therefore, we need to pass this legislation, and they did. And so what I'm saying is, Republicans and libertarians, they need to say, well, wait a minute. Let's take a look at that information. Is it really true? Are all these things as they say they are? And one of my criticisms of that particular information, when you went and I don't remember the specific numbers, but when you went and look back at it, you would find that a lot of the things that were grouped as hate crimes weren't crimes at all. They were just unpleasant experiences. Like, for instance, and you can go back and listen, and this is one of the exact examples that I gave at the time, is there was a story where somebody went into a coffee shop. They ordered their coffee. They sat down. Other people came in, allegedly, got their coffee, went to go sit down, looked over, saw the Asian person sitting there, and then decided to go sit on the other side of the restaurant. That was reported and included in what constituted, or what was described as, a collection of hate crimes, and hate crimes being on the rise. We passed legislation in part on the basis of stories like that. So this is why I say it's time to go on the defense, not the offense, for these things. Because when Republicans, and again libertarians, I'm seeing them do it as well. When you go on the offense, number one, you make mistakes, and number two, it just doesn't get received well. It really doesn't. So let me finish up what I was saying. Number one, you ignore some things. Number two, you discuss a lot of things. You go on the defense and you say, all right, are these things true? What's this data look like? Like when we dig in, is this a study if it's a study that's done online and is self-reporting, then you have to ask yourself, does that really represent the group, whatever group that it's supposed to represent? Does it represent that group well? Or are the people that are more inclined to respond to the survey or the report or whatever, the survey, are those people going to also be those who are more likely to have experienced negative things? In other words, are you really capturing the totality of everybody in a way that's representative of the group as a whole? If I go around my neighborhood and I randomly knock on doors, just randomly into my neighborhood, I randomly knock on them, and then I ask them a question, and then I collect all that data and I say, hey, here's the information about my neighborhood. That accurately represents my neighborhood, because I went and I was randomly chose different houses throughout the neighborhood. And depending on how many houses that I randomly choose will depend on how good that information ends up being. If I randomly choose 2 houses, probably not very reflective of the neighborhood. But if I choose 50, then it's probably pretty reflective of the neighborhood. And it's probably you can actually look at the data that I come up with and say, yeah, that's probably pretty legit. But if I send out a mailer to everybody in the neighborhood and I say, please go to this website and fill out my survey. Well, then the question is, well, let's say 4 people do it. Well, those numbers are too little. But let's just say 50 people do it. And it sounds like, well, 50 people I knocked on doors, 50 people responded, right? Maybe that's still reflective. But then the question is, are those 50 people actually representative of the neighborhood? Because how many people in the neighborhood are willing to take time out of their day and say, you know what? I would like to fill out this survey. Let me go online and fill it out. Depending on the nature of the survey, that may adjust the or that may change the dynamic of those numbers, because I may be getting the people that are most likely to be affected. So if I say something like, please come to my website and tell me if you have experienced a hateful act from anybody, in anybody, anywhere that you've been in the last year. Okay. Maybe that's the question that I have, something like that. And so then my neighbors look at it. Well, the people that haven't experienced it may be disinclined to go to my website and say, no, I have not. Whereas the people who have experienced it might be more inclined to go on my website and say, yes, I have. And so out of those 50, if 40 of them say, yes, I have, well, it looks like 4 out of 5 people have experienced this thing in my neighborhood. Do you see how this works? So this is why we have to discuss a lot of information. This is why I say be on the defense, not the offense. Then the final thing in the culture war, we ignore some, we discuss a lot. Then we talk about regulation. If we get to the point where we say, yes, a thing is happening and it needs to be addressed, then we look and say, is it best addressed by legislation, or can it be addressed in some other way? And this, I believe, is the proper way to handle the culture war. Now, I want to point out something to you. I'm not the only one saying this. Enter Ann Coulter. You know Ann Coulter, the conservative pundit. She's been around quite a while, a little bit sharp tongue and whatnot. Well, in this article, I'm not going to pull up the article. I'm just going to pull up a few of the quotes from it, but it's an article called "The New Baby Killers," and she is very, very against abortion. But she also says this. Let me bring this up so that I can read it to you. What she says in this article, she said, and I'm going to highlight a few more specific things here in just a moment. Here, give me just a second here. But she says extremists have got to learn to take half a loaf, just like cheap labor demanding GOP donors. Pro-lifers need to be told you can't get everything you want. If Republicans give you this, they'll lose their jobs, and the people who replace them will want you dead. Now, she's a bit dramatic, right? But what she's trying to do is she's trying to tell the most extreme members of her movement to chill out, because it ends up not working out well for them. So here are a few select quotes from, let me see here. Let me pull this up. Get right there. We go. All right. So here's a few select quotes. So in this first one, she says, unlike a lot of people complaining about the anti-abortion zealots, I am an anti-abortion zealot. That's why I'm begging them to stop pushing wildly unpopular ideas. And so then she goes on to say, oh, where did it go here? There we go. Next one. All right. The Democratic Party has been using abortion to scare suburban women in every election cycle for 50 years. Now Republicans are finally giving them something to be scared about. She goes on a little bit later and says, since Dobbs, that was a court case, there have been a total of 6 statewide ballot initiatives exclusively about abortion. The pro-life side lost every single time. They lost in blue states, in purple states, and in red states. They were not outspent. They were direct to the people votes. The tiniest restriction on abortion failed, even wholly theoretical restrictions. Every expansion of abortion rights won. Why is she saying that? In the article, which I'll link in the show notes, and you can go and read it in full. It's not very long. The argument that she's effectively making is that the Democrats, the left, if you will, they have been making these social arguments for decades upon decades, and they're very good at it. And they work. Like abortion, people get afraid and they say, "Whoa, whoa, I don't want this crazy, crazy restriction." Right? And then the moment that the Republicans get a little bit of a win, they rush and they try to get it. And so Ann Coulter is like, "Look, we need to stop you guys. You guys need to back up." And I think she said something like, "We need to bind and gag our activists." So the point here that I'm making is that I'm not the only one to see this. What Gomez did, the videos that I couldn't play, and I'm so sorry, they failed because that's not the winning issue for Republicans. And it's not going to be the way, because there's a lot. I keep saying Republicans and libertarians because I see that there are many libertarians that are traveling down a very similar path. They're trying to go on the offense in the same way that Valentina Gomez did, where they're coming out and they're saying stuff that might work and get some likes and clicks online, but in the real world, they don't produce results. The things that produce results for Republicans and libertarians, few as we get, those are going to be economic issues primarily, almost entirely. Talk about people's wallet. Talk about taxes, tax money that doesn't need to be spent, tax money that's being wasted. Now, for libertarians, we're not anywhere close to getting away from all taxes. But where we can shine is point out to people and say, hey, in our city council, maybe, or in our state government, or in our federal government, these thousands, millions, billions, they don't need to be spent. And we need to be defensive in showing why they're being wasted, the results that we're not getting, and where we might, in some cases, where we might better divert that money. Now, in my opinion, that money would be best not diverted at all because it shouldn't be taken. But that's a tough sell right now. And it's not the one that Republicans are going to try to sell. So the argument then should be, here's where we should spend the money if we have to spend it in the first place. We should not be spending it here. That's the argument that would be a winning argument for Republicans and for libertarians when they get that opportunity. Stick to what you're good at. You simply do not have the social capital to make to go on the offense for for culture war issues. You have to stay on the defense. The defense is showing that information is in many cases simply not is made up. It's not there. Or there's something there that Americans would largely go, wait a minute, that ain't right. Biden would never have been able to sign US Senate Bill 937, the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. He would never have been able to sign it with all that support if Republicans and libertarians had went out and said, "Hey, wait a minute. You're about to sign this legislation, but look, a lot of this information or a lot of these reports are simply bad behaviors but aren't crimes. But you're calling them hate crimes. It is not a crime to not sit next to somebody. It is not a crime to say something offensive to somebody, nor should it be." So it wouldn't have passed, but it did pass because both Republicans and libertarians are fighting the wrong fight. They need to fight the correct fight, the one they can win, where they say, let's evaluate this information that you're presenting before we pass the bill. Like, okay, like rather than just squawk about it, rather than dive into saying things like fake and gay and all this other stuff, fake and gay doesn't get votes and it doesn't stop legislation. So you can say it all you want all over the internet. It's not going to save you. And later, when you come crying and saying, well, my state legislature, they passed this law and I don't like it, maybe I'll just look at you and go, your tears are fake and gay. How about that? You should have listened. You should have focused on what you were good at and not being drawn into a fight that you can't win because you're not prepared to fight that fight. All right. So hopefully people will start to take and look, time's running out. If you're running a campaign right now, if you got a primary coming up, or maybe you've passed the primary, maybe there isn't a primary for you because there wasn't any challenges, what have you. If you are going to be on the ballot come November and you're a libertarian or you're a Republican, then I'm going to warn you right now. Stop trying to fight a culture war offensively. Do it defensively. Because you will find out, unless you happen to be in an area where you were guaranteed to win anyway. I mean, if you're in a red area and pretty much everybody always votes Republican, then yeah, I guess you can make that. You can say whatever you want because you're probably going to win. But if you actually got a challenger, stick to a defensive argument. And that's especially true for the libertarians. We have no business. We have even less capital in the culture war than Republicans. The fact of the matter is, we're ill prepared to fight that fight. All right. So we should probably move on to how about a bill review, right? Wouldn't a bill review be kind of fun?
But I know I'll be a law someday, at least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
All right. I'm going to update that one of these days. He's much, much bigger now. He can actually write too. I mean, the letters are really big, but he can write. He signs his name. It's like 3 feet tall. All right. What are we talking about today? So there is a bill. There's an anti-hate bill going through here in Jacksonville. And I called it trash online. I said, it's a trash bill. And it is. And so we're going to walk through it here. I hope that I can get this video to work. We will try one more video and see if this is going to if this is going to play for us. But I don't know, but we'll find out. Let's give it a shot. So let's see what we got here. Does anybody hear anything? I don't see any comments here, and I don't hear it in my headset. So I can only assume that it is not working. Let's see here. That's the only thing. This is the news report about the bill, and unfortunately, I cannot hear it. I don't know why it's not coming through my headset. No volume. Okay, so somebody else has confirmed that there is in fact no volume. So I have no idea what is going on. This is so fun. Let me try one last thing here. We'll just take a look. It is a bad day for videos, folks. I have no idea what's going on. I don't even know.
Who's doing something.
City there we go.
Member Jimmy Peluso saying his anti-hate bill adds penalty existing laws in which
let's back it up a little bit.
First 11 graffiti left on a business at the town center in Jacksonville is being investigated as a hate crime. Thank you for standing up with us tonight. I'm Anthony Austin.
And I'm Heather Crawford. Messages that read Gaza will win and Starbucks funds genocide were found on a Starbucks building earlier today. The store closed its doors as crews removed the red markings. Meantime, a discussion was already planned to talk about increased penalties for hate speech and displays in the city.
And today, that bill proposed by City Councilman Jimmy Peluso hit its latest roadblock. Andrew Badillo is on your side tonight. He's joining us live in downtown Jacksonville. And Andrew, I understand the bill was discussed in a committee meeting. Let's talk about the outcome tonight.
Yeah, Anthony, the the bill was voted down 4-3. Those who support the bill say it holds people accountable, while those in opposition say that it is redundant.
This is doing something. City Council member Jimmy Peluso saying his anti-hate bill adds penalties to existing laws in which hate speech and...
Okay, I want to pause it really quick. Mr. Peluso there said, this is doing something. Now, it's a short clip, and maybe there was a little bit more substance to what he was saying, in fairness to him. But to be honest with you, that's the attitude a lot of people have when it comes to legislation. They're like, well, we've got to do something, right? But something isn't guaranteed to produce results. And if it's not going to produce results, then you're just wasting everybody's time. So something is not good enough.
Messages are said or projected. For example, in early 2023, anti Semitic pamphlets were put on people's lawns in Mandarin. The violation would be littering, but Peluso says his bill would fine the offender up to $10,000 or face up to a year in jail.
Okay, let's pause for just a second here. So what they said was some anti-Semitic message. I remember this, like somebody baggied up a bunch of anti-Semitic messages. I think they put some rocks in there in the baggies to weigh them down so that they didn't blow away or anything. And they just drove around neighborhoods and they tossed them out. Presumably they drove around in Jewish neighborhoods or maybe black neighborhoods, and they tossed out the little flyers, or they were anti-Semitic, so I guess they would just be Jewish neighborhoods, and they tossed them out on the pavement so that people could come out when they're picking up their mail or when they're going out to mow their lawn, and they say, "Oh, what's this piece of paper?" And they pick it up and it says, "We don't like Jews," or whatever crazy nonsense that they decided. So what this would do is it would fine that person and up to potentially $10,000, not for doing it if the goal was to spread hate, right? So there's two offenses. The offense number one is, hey, you did this thing. Number two is you did it for this purpose. You were trying to do this thing. In other words, it's a thought crime. That's what Jimmy Peluso is presenting, a thought crime. He wants you to be charged. But as bad as that is, let's set that aside for a moment. $10,000. Now let's say that one of those white supremacists gets busted. And maybe he had even posted on social media somewhere and said, "I'm going to go out and terrorize these Jews because I hate them." Right? He'd probably say something worse than that. Okay, cool. I mean, not cool, but I mean, you get it. And so then they bust him and they say, well, you did this thing and you had intent to be hateful. And that's a crime. You can get punished up to $10,000. Let's say he's smiling in the courtroom and the judge says, "I don't like your attitude." So then he gives him the max penalty, $10,000. Who gets that $10,000? Is it the Jewish people that he went and was hateful toward? Nope. They don't get that money. The city gets it. The city benefits from it. It's like a tax. It's basically what it is. It's a tax. $10,000. So it may sound like, oh, he's going to get $10,000. But then what happens when he doesn't have $10,000? I mean, do you have $10,000 that you can, go around and say something and be hateful? I know I don't. I don't have $10,000 sitting around just chilling. So what happens? Well, when the government wants their money, then what do? They take money away from him, right? Maybe collect payments, garnish his wages, that kind of stuff, right? Because they want to get their money, right? Like, I mean, they can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. So maybe they just say, we'll take payments. You owe us, I don't know, $250 every month. So that's $250 this person has to give them every single month. That doesn't go to the actual person that was insulted. So we're not even like the government can't even claim and say, "Hey, look, all the money that we receive, we're going to give it to the actual victims of this crime, the crime of somebody being extra hateful," right? They're not getting the $10,000, but the government is. The government is a beneficiary of interactions between people. Or make it even worse, let's say the judge is really irate and sends him to jail for up to 1 year. Who pays for that? I do. The Jewish people do. So now we're going to put somebody in jail, maybe even so I presume they're not going to do both, but we'll put them into jail for 1 year where they have to have their medical expenses taken care of. They have to get food and water and, whatever every day. They got to be housed. That requires electricity. That requires staff. There's administrative cost. All this stuff adds up. So I don't know what the cost of all that is, but we're going to put somebody in jail for up to 1 year and the taxpayers pay for it. Taxpayers, including the Jewish community. So now the same people that this white supremacist was trying to terrorize, not only would they not get the money for being terrorized, but now they got to pay for somebody. And this is what Mr. Peluso calls justice? Huh. Interesting.
He says a county judge would decide if the penalty is added.
When someone is caught, we do have protections.
Bill opponents like Councilmember Terrence Freeman say the bill is redundant because these crimes can already be prosecuted at the state and federal level.
That bill that we're trying to push forward is really just more for show. And if we're going to do something to show solidarity as a council, then you usually do that through a resolution.
Okay, pause right there. Now, I'm not a big fan of Terrence Freeman. I came out at him hard when he was running for election because we had a libertarian candidate running against him. But he is absolutely correct here. He said this is just for show. And if the city council wants to do something for show, which I think is pointless and they shouldn't bother wasting their time on, then he is correct. A resolution is exactly what they should be passing. And they've done this before. They passed a resolution regarding the Israel-Hamas conflict. And I criticized that because I was like, look, you're Jacksonville. You're a city. You don't need to be worrying about Middle Eastern conflict. Like, mind your business and deal with Jacksonville. Okay. But they passed a resolution. So whatever, there's nothing binding about it. Nobody can actually get in trouble. There's no penalties or anything. Like if I were to come out and say, yeah, Israel, take them all out. Okay. If I were to come out and say, Hamas, you should win. Okay. Like that resolution doesn't affect me either way. Right. So fine. But he is correct. And then it's very interesting because he actually put out a full statement. Let me pull this up on the screen. And it's weird because I honestly would never have expected that that I would be defending Mr. Freeman. But here I am. Stranger things have happened. And the fact of the matter is he's correct. So let me put over here. All right. So here's the memo that he put out. And I'm just going to read you a couple clips or snippets. While we all agree that we should oppose hate, this legislation disingenuously seeks to leverage our emotions for political purposes and does nothing to address the issues that face our city. Boom, right there, mic drop. Yes, Mr. Freeman, that is absolutely correct. Moving on down, instead of keeping our community safe and doing police work, our officers would spend valuable time deciding which speech is or is not hate speech. There are also unknown repercussions to the First Amendment in which the city will likely face litigation, diverting taxpayer dollars from other pressing needs. So when we talk about taxpayer dollars, who does that include? That includes, weird how that did that. That includes the people who are facing these horrible things like signs and flyers and other stupid things that we can just pick up, throw in the trash and roll our eyes about and go on about our day. That includes that. So my wife is Asian. Let's say somebody drops off some anti-Asian stuff in our yard. I'm going to be annoyed because one, I already spend a lot of time on my yard. I don't want to go out and clean up somebody else's trash. Okay. And I'm going to be further annoyed because I'm like, seriously, you come and you drop off garbage at my house? But I'm going to be really angry if I find out that they catch the person and they put them in jail for a year and I have to pay for it. Why should I have to pay for it? Why should my neighbor have to pay for it? Who maybe not even Asian, right? Maybe that's just a nice white guy. He shouldn't have to pay for it either. The only person that should have to pay for it is the criminal. And that's if we decide that we should actually put them in jail, which I would argue we shouldn't. There is no reason whatsoever to punish people saying things or, that are mean. That's really all it amounts to. Now, if they make a threat, that's a different story. If somebody says, hey, I'm coming over to your house, your wife better not be there. Whoa, excuse me, what? Now, that's a problem. Arrest them, that's fine. That's a direct, credible threat. And I'm okay with punishing you for that. I'm okay with my tax dollars being paid to punish somebody who literally was threatening me, which would mean that now I have to change what I'm doing in the middle. Like, let's say it's a nice Saturday afternoon and I find out that someone says, hey, I'm coming over to your house. Your wife better not be there because bad things are going to happen. Well, now I've got to go and prepare. Maybe call the police, maybe tell my wife, hey, maybe you need to leave for a minute. I don't know if this is true, right? My day is now being disrupted by this threat. So yes, I would be okay with tax money going for that. But if somebody were just running their mouth online, I don't care. If they were dropping off a flyer, okay, if you want to bust them for littering, fine. Okay. I don't want to pay for it. Make them pay for it. So, the best way to make sure that they pay for it is to make sure that whatever punishment is one where the cost doesn't exceed their ability to pay. Like if you say, well, we're going to charge you $10,000, really? I don't think they're going to pay $10,000, right? Yeah, it would hurt. And maybe they wouldn't do it, but maybe not. Maybe they would just find some other way, right? That's the nature of bullies. The nature of bullies is that they stop doing what they get in trouble for and they do something else so they can keep bullying. We've talked about that on the show in the past. All right, let's get back to this video clip here. Let's see if we can't finish it up real quick. So let's see here.
First and 11.
Ah, no, let's move back.
Anti-Semitic
There.
Is really just more for show. And if we're going to do something to show solidarity as a council, then you usually do that through a resolution.
Peluso says a resolution doesn't solve anything and doesn't bring accountability.
He's right. It doesn't solve anything. This is why I say we shouldn't pass resolutions either. But if you want to say something, then pass a resolution. But he is correct. I will give him that.
He cited other incidents his bill would apply to, including
All right, there it is. There, see that this somebody did a laser light show on one of our buildings. All right, let's back it up a little bit, just a wee bit. Whoops. There, go back. There. And what does it say?
other
Kanye
incidents his
is
bill would
right
apply to,
about the
including
Jews. So what Mr. Peluso is saying is that somebody laser lighted this on a building and they should be fined $10,000. Not because they did it necessarily, but because of the intent. They wanted to make Jews feel uncomfortable, so they should be fined for their intent. That, sir, is indeed a thought crime. That's exactly what it is. That is tyranny. Even though this message is stupid and ignorant and probably many other words, many of those words would still apply to charging somebody $10,000 for the intent of it.
anti-Semitic projections on downtown buildings, and a business owner who recently displayed a Nazi flag.
Okay, so this one was interesting. Somebody actually did display a Nazi flag. So if they said, I'm going to put this Nazi flag out so Jews driving by will feel bad, $10,000. Really? Sounds like a free speech issue to me. And don't get me wrong. I think it's a terrible use of your free speech. I could think of way better uses for it.
Outside his business.
This was almost the bare minimum of what we could do.
It almost sounds like he's choking up like, this was almost the bare minimum. Like, dude, get a hold of yourself. You're a council member.
In terms of actually taking real action.
For Wells Todd of Take 'Em Down Jacks, he doesn't think the ordinance solves the greater problem.
We can't seem to be able to actually talk about what is causing these hateful acts that are being carried out.
The anti-hate bill will head to Tuesday's city council meeting for a final vote, although it has been voted down into committees. And because of that, Councilmember Peluso doesn't have very much confidence that it will pass for that final vote. Reporting live in downtown Jacksonville, Andrew Badillo, First Coast.
Awesome. So I'm glad that it won't pass. I haven't checked to see. I don't think they've had their city council meeting just yet. I apologize. I'm usually a little bit better on my game here, but things are a little bit rocky this week. So let's get back to that bill review. We'll take a look at it and see what else is in the bill. So let's just take a look here. Move things around a little bit here. So we want to do this one and bam, right there. All right. So there we are. So here's the bill. Bill is 9 pages. So I already don't like it. Like really 9 pages. In fairness, however, a lot of it is just citing existing statute. So, and they're putting it into context because they're like, all right, in this big huge paragraph, in between these 2 paragraphs, we're going to add this other one. Right. So in a little bit of fairness to them, but 9 pages, come on. Like just so you can say we're going to charge you $10,000 for a thought crime. Like you could have done that on a single page. Not that I would have liked it anymore. All right. So here, whereas in response to a dramatic increase in hate crimes across the country and state, right? So they've got this whereas section in here. And then go down. Whereas between 2020 and 2022, there has been massive increases in hate crimes investigated and prosecuted in Florida, several of which have been investigated by the FBI. Whereas between 2020 and 2022, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office reported 24 hate crimes. That's a massive increase, 24, to the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program. Well, I happen to pull that up. And so let's take a look at that real quick. Where are you here? Get my screens back. All right. So I actually have some of this information and I thought it was kind of interesting. So let's take a look here. Where am I? I am so off my game today. I apologize. And I thank everybody for being a little bit patient with me. So thank you so much. It's awesome having such a great audience like that. All right. So here we go. So this is, let me zoom in on it a little bit so that you can see what exactly we're looking at. So this is the Crime Data Explorer from the FBI. I'm gonna go here, state and national violent crime rates. And so we can go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And let's see here. If I can't move over, can I move that? Nope, that's the best I can do. Okay, I think you can still see it well enough. All right, so we've got Florida 2012 to 2022. We can see that in 2012, it was crazy high with like 487 reports. And then in 2022, we get down and it's like way down to 258.9. Right, I believe that's number of reports. I don't know how they did the 0.9. Maybe that's I'm not really sure exactly, but you can see that there's a huge drop in Florida. Now I don't know exactly where in Florida, but I have to assume that a lot of this drop also applies to Jacksonville. And then you can see with the trend compared to the United States. But what's interesting is if we go over here, hate crime by Duval County Sheriff's Office incident analysis. And we selected, I zoom out a little bit here. So year selected. So you can only select 2022. Yeah, I can go back the past 2 years. That gives me a good idea. And there you have it. 24, just like they said, there's 24, right? So here's the fun part. Let's take a look and we will just do the current year. So when we do 2022, it drops to 8. That's interesting. And then if we go to 2021, it goes to 16. So it actually dropped from 21 to 2022 by half of what was reported to their Crime Data Explorer. I think it's called the Uniform Crime Reporting System or something like that. So they are correct, 24, but they neglect to point out that it actually dropped from 2021 to 2022. Now I don't know why. We'd have to look in and dig deeper and find out, like, okay, what's going on here, right? And these are hate crimes. How were they identified? Who decided what constituted a hate crime? Was it a hate crime in the context of somebody snubbing their nose at somebody, or did they actually commit a real crime, like an offense against someone's person or property? Right? That's the information that we don't have, but that's the information that we want to work with so we can pass this bill by Mr. Peluso. All right, going on. There's a couple more things here. We'll wrap this show up. All right, so we're going down. Oh, let me go back to let me bring up where we go here. All right, so there we are. All right, got that back. So we'll go down here a little bit. So here's where they add, and so you can see where here's like section 368-301 violations and criminal penalties. They want to add, if the violation was committed with the primary purpose of expressing or attempting to promote animosity, hostility, or malice against a person or persons or against the property of a person or persons because of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity, marital status, national origin, age, or disability, the fine and jail penalties authorized herein may be enhanced up to triple the assessed fine and or jail penalty. So he wants to triple it if you have committed a hate crime, because it's already in there. They've already determined certain things are crimes. You can't do these. We can punish you. And people said, well, maybe we'll do them anyway. And then Mr. Peluso says, well, okay, well, maybe if the reason that you're doing it, rather than increase the penalty of the original offense, he wants to say, well, we're going to investigate. We're going to determine whether it was a hate crime. Well, as Mr. Freeman pointed out in his letter, that the police have a job to do, and that's to go and find like rapists and murderers and stuff like that, right? Their job is not to collect evidence for hate crimes, for thought crimes. I'm sorry. That's not really their job, but that's what this would make it. This would make it their job now to collect that evidence. Because if an officer arrests me on suspicion that I Maybe I was doing something hateful toward another group, right? He arrests me. He can arrest me for the offense. Hey, you were throwing flyers on their yard. Okay. There's evidence there. But then he has to collect evidence of why I did it so that the DA and the judge can make the appropriate determinations. They can't fine me $10,000 if they don't know and have evidence that the purpose of it was expressing or attempting to promote animosity, hostility, or malice. They can't do that without evidence. They need evidence and say, well, this is what your primary purpose was. And there's two points to that. You may not have even noticed it. Not only was that my intent, was it my primary intent? They're asking an awful lot here for our law enforcement and for our DAs, our prosecutors, and our judges. They want more resources to determine, were you thinking bad thoughts about this or did you just do it? But we all know what people, if you drop off flyers at a Jewish person's home full of anti-Semitic slurs, your purpose was probably to be a jerk. I mean, I'm summarizing, right? All this stuff. Your purpose was to be a jerk. You weren't doing it and being like, hey, have you seen this? This is pretty garbage, isn't it? That's not why you did it. We know why you did it, but there's no evidence by it. So then the real question is, would this actually do anything, Mr. Bare Minimum? No, it wouldn't. Because we already know. Now we're just going to have to try to collect information and prove intent. It's crazy. It's a thought crime. It's ridiculous. All right. I think there's one more thing. Basically, it's the same concept all the way through here. Let's go down here. I think there's one more section. Basically, the same thing. Additionally, if any violation addressed by this section was committed with the primary purpose of expressing, attempting to promote, blah, blah, like this is literally the same section. Just adds it multiple times for multiple offenses. Literally just adds in, says, if you did it as a thought crime, if you committed a thought crime, then you will be extra guilty. That's really what it's about. That's what Mr. Peluso on our city council wants for Jacksonville. Thought crimes. So, Jacksonville, remember that next time you vote. Remember that on his future legislation that he wants to pass. Remember that when you're bored and you need to send an email and you're like, maybe I should send a letter to city council and just give them a little bit of hell. And you can give him hell and everybody who supported that bill. I'll give you those names. It was introduced by council members Peluso, Carlucci, Gaffney, Pittman, Clark Murray, and Johnson. So you can email every single one of them and say, this is a trash bill and you know it. You're trying to penalize thought crimes. Unacceptable. If we could remove you from office, we sure as hell would. That's how serious this is. Don't dare come back with another piece of garbage legislation like this. Solve real problems. You aren't solving any problems by doing this. You're just simply adding to the bureaucratic state. And at best, it's going to cost taxpayers more money. And we're not going to be any more of a cohesive society. That's it. Thanks a lot. All right, let's check out some comments before I head on out. See if tomorrow I can do a little bit better on this. Time surfing alien, enough laws. Hate speech is speech with trigger word. It totally is. It's just a trigger word, right? And here's the thing about words. Like all of those council members that I mentioned, they're as old as me or maybe even a little bit older. So they grew up hearing sticks and stones, break my bones, names will never hurt me, blah, 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 right? That was ground into my head when I was growing up. Now, the truth is names do hurt, right? They make you feel bad. If you come and you call, if you call a Jewish person some of those nasty terms, they're not going to feel good about it. So in a sense, that saying isn't entirely true. However, we need to remember as society, we give power to words. So if you call me, when I was a little guy, like today, but when I was younger, and people would make fun of me for being small and short, It got on my nerves and it really hurt my feelings. And then one day I stopped letting it. I said, you know what? You're right. I am short. So what? That's it. I started taking away all the power. And all of a sudden, all these words that were hurting me, they didn't hurt no more. Why? Because I stopped giving them power, because they were trigger words. They were words used to trigger me. So I said, let me just cut the line on that trigger. Therefore, those words, now they really don't hurt. Now you're going to have to use a stick or a stone, and I got a gun, so whatever. All right, let's see. Wasting time and money. That Liberty Lady, absolutely. That's what this is. Wasting time and money. Everybody's time. I mean, I want you to think about this for a second. When I'm gonna wrap it up and close the show. They're not just wasting time and money by implementing these and, the resources that the officers and the DA, the prosecutors and the judges and all. They're wasting their own time right now because they could be doing other things. They're wasting our time because I had to stop, go and review this bill. I had to read different things. I had to watch videos about it. I had to make sure that I understood the bill well enough so that I could criticize it. So they're wasting my time. Any citizen that wants to support or oppose the bill, they have to go and read it now. So they're wasting all of our time right now. And we're not getting any, we've got no benefit. 1 hour now has passed that I've basically been talking about this. And Jacksonville is no better. We're not in any better position. They've wasted hours and hours of time. Anytime somebody has to read a bill. So we should absolutely come down hard on our city councils, our state legislators, and our Congress whenever they propose legislation that's garbage. Because we have to read it in order, or we should be. Somebody has to review it to even say, do I support this or do I not? And if it's garbage legislation, they should be held accountable for it. All of those names, Peluso, Carlucci, I'm gonna read them again. Peluso, Carlucci, Gaffney, Pittman, Clark Murray, and Johnson. All 6 of them. They all had to read it. They're wasting their time now. I'm wasting my time. Anybody watching this now, their time is sort of been wasted. I mean, it's never wasted when you watch my show because I'm always delivering good stuff, but I could have talked about something else. And so that time is now gone thanks to these 6 city council members because they want to propose legislation to criminalize thought crimes. That's what they want to do. They want to live in 1984 so that they can get on camera and say, it's the least we could do. No, the least you could do is actually nothing. Go home, go to sleep, take a nap, learn a new skill, because clearly writing legislation ain't it. All right, folks, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, found it informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Remember, this week and maybe the next might be a little bit rocky as we work out, the new schedule with getting my little guy to school. Make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. And last but not least, I want you to remember, you're a champion of liberty, your business is people, and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.